Hello. For my speech analysis, I'll be analyzing President George Bush's Bullhorn speech. For context, the speech was given after the September 11th attacks in New York to the emergency service workers who were on the scene at Ground Zero, like right where the attacks took place. These service workers were cleaning up the scene and other stuff like that. The importance of not only hearing but understanding his speech here ties into the history of American morale and why the U.S. was able to overcome such a tragedy. For George Bush, this was such like a turning moment for his presidency and other things like that. So this speech is about 2 minutes long, and has a very casual feel to it, with him standing with everybody like basically dead center in the crowd. He's standing with a firefighter with a literal bullhorn rather than at a podium with a mic. I would say, one of his goals for this speech was to be casual because of the fact it was post-terrorist attack, all of that. He starts with saying, the country is on a need for those who have lost their lives and mourning losses. And at this point, like the beginning, people are kind of still murmuring and talking. But when someone in the crowd says, I can't hear you, he responds like very symbolically with, I can hear you. This is a very major turning point and also ties into his goal of like wanting to fire up the crowd a little bit and bring people together and boost morale at this time because of, how tragic everything like going on was, and, how the world was feeling. As everyone cheers during this moment because of that symbolic answer, it ties into the emotional appeal of his speech and his ability to like adapt to the crowd's morale. He allows the crowd to cheer for USA and other things before, kind of closing off his speech. And I think that ties again into like his nonverbal cues of letting people go, like letting people respond by chanting and waiting for them and doing it at the right moments. He closes off by saying, and may God bless America, again in response to someone in the crowd from what I heard. And he continues with saying, like, the nation is sending their love. And, I again feel that it ties into the overall, like, nonverbal communication. For George Bush, he was a very well-spoken president and paused when necessary. And, that use of nonverbal cues, like how I said he was standing in the front of the crowd, he had his arm around the firefighter he was standing with, again to show to the crowd, he was here with them, he was there. Overall, I would recommend this speech because of how it set the stage for the post 9/11 era, which influenced the shift in our political and cultural beliefs surrounding terrorism and other things like that. So I would say, ultimately it was a very good speech. I recommend it. I think, he accomplished his goals of wanting to, get people together and do things like that. So, thanks.